You want tea? I'm bringing the whole damn kettle. No, you aren't. Hi, thanks for clicking. My name's Hugh Guiney. Typically this is a vlog channel, but today I want to talk about Shane Dawson.
And let's just jump into it.
Shane. What are you doing? I was so excited for this series, but having watched the entire thing now, I am immeasurably disappointed. I think this is not just a poorly made documentary, it's actually harmful. It doesn't meet its stated goal, and it distorts the truth in a really uncomfortable way for me. Now, there's a lot to get to in this video, so I am going to assume that you know who some of these players are. Shane Dawson, Jake Paul, Logan Paul, Alyssa Violet, Erica Costell, Nick CROMPTON. I'm going to assume that you know who all these people are so I don't get bogged down. So in my previous video, I gave my first impressions on the first 3 episodes of the series. Now, at the time, I was disappointed, but I still had hopes that Shane could turn it around. Now, however, after seeing the entire series, it's a complete disaster. I don't even know where to begin. So I guess let's just go back to part 1 and work our way up to part 8, and I'm gonna talk about each of the problems with each of the parts. Now, not much happens in part 1. Shane talks via Skype to iNabber, another YouTuber who sort of sets the scene for who Jake Paul is, some of the drama surrounding him. And while iNabber gave a good synopsis, he did advocate for a pet theory of his that Team 10 members pay to play.
And I'm not sure if they were friends. Is it all fake? Is it real? Are people paying to be there?
Now, I don't think this theory has any legs whatsoever. It's pretty simple math, really. Jake's income scales with the amount of content that he produces, and the amount of content that he produces scales with the amount of people in Team 10. So that's easy return on investment right there. And in fact, the way that Team 10 is actually structured is as a corporation. So all of the members of Team 10 are actually employees of Jake Paul. That's why Jake Paul is referred to as the CEO and Nick CROMPTON was referred to as the COO because it was a company. But the bigger issue with iNabber's synopsis is that he ended up victim blaming the former Team 10 members. He said that they could have left earlier if they wanted to.
It would make Alyssa Violet, for example, with Jake Paul. If all the things were as bad as Alyssa said about Team 10 when she got fired for supposedly cheating, then why did she not break up with him before? Why did she not leave if it was so ongoing? Same with the Martinez twins. If Jake Paul was apparently bullying them, why did they not leave before?
And why would they have stayed in if it wasn't for contracts because they've paid to play? And that doesn't make any sense. Contracts or no, when you're in an abusive relationship with somebody who is ostensibly on your side, whether it's personally or professionally, Stockholm Syndrome can happen. Part 2, the dark side of Jake Paul. Now, people have already talked about this video a lot, so I won't spend too much time on it. In it, Shane talks to Katie Morton, the therapist, to discuss whether or not Jake might have sociopathy. So the only thing I want to add here is I think the sociopath angle was created to deflect criticism from giving Jake Paul a platform. Now, when the series was first coming out, it seemed like the sociopath angle was going to be this big thing. It seemed like it actually defined the entire point of the docuseries. But looking back, I don't think that could be further from the truth. After the backlash about his portrayal about people with antisocial personality disorder, Shane massively downplayed the sociopath angle, and by part 5, it was completely gone and dismissed. I think there are 2 reasons we didn't see much of the sociopath angle after episode 2. Number 1, obviously, is that he got a lot of backlash, and Shane really just can't handle any kind of criticism whatsoever. He thinks he's God's gift to YouTube, so he completely took that out to quell the critics on Twitter at all. And the second reason is I think the sociopath angle was always just kind of a smokescreen. I don't think he actually cared whether or not Jake Paul was a sociopath. Under the guise of investigative journalism, nobody can call him out for low-key basically doing a collab with Jake Paul. So he's like, guys, I'm just trying to get to the bottom of this. Is he or is he not a sociopath? When in reality, he's just cozying up to one of the most influential YouTubers on the platform for his own benefit. Part 3, the family of Jake Paul. This one is literally just Shane sitting on the couch, watching YouTube videos, basically doing his research for the documentary in the documentary itself. I thought it was way too meta, complete waste of time. He's just sitting there overreacting to every little thing. He didn't even understand that the plate dropping was this meme in the Logan Paul vlogs. I talked about this in the last video. I mean, like, imagine if CNN had Anderson Cooper on TV watching the news that he was about to report on. As being like, oh no, that's terrible. He really just should have done this research off screen, I think. And part 3 is also where he starts setting up the sob story of Jake Paul. Oh, he had a bad upbringing. His parents didn't treat him well. He was always in competition with Logan. The dad is literally a drill sergeant. So while I was watching that episode, it did feel pretty interesting. But then in the context of the entire series, you get the sense that this was actually laying the groundwork for building a sympathetic case for Jake Paul. Part 4, the enemies of Jake Paul. This is the episode where I completely turned on Shane. In the first 3 episodes, I was still on board, but then in part 4, where he has this tell-all interview with Nick CROMPTON, the biggest problem with part 4 is that Shane completely takes Nick CROMPTON's word at fucking everything.
I feel like pretty much everyone that's a little bit older knows that it's all fake.
If pushing people down in stores and doing all that kind of stuff is planned,
that's how we're gonna wake everyone up.
Then it kind of changes my opinion a little bit.
I think that after watching the Martinez twins expose video on Team 10 and Jake Paul, there's no way you could possibly believe any word out of CROMPTON's mouth.
Like, do you remember when I was like, oh my God, we don't know if we're gonna sleep well today? Jake wakes up every day so early, so he can prank us. Yeah. But the reason is like, okay, he's gonna prank us, but he can prank all the members too.
It's far too convenient of an excuse to claim that all of the pranks were faked, especially when you look at Alyssa Violet's claims, which back up what the Martinez twins said.
I know that like a bunch of the pranks, for example, you would let us know like the night before, like, hey, by the way, I'm gonna like pretend to wake you up tomorrow with like a leaf blower, like whatever it is. For me, he would let me know for a bunch of pranks before it happened, but like a bunch of pranks, he wanted to see my like real, genuine reaction of like a lot of the pranks were real.
And when it comes to the Martinez twins, English is not their first language.
Just imagine, I want you to guys imagine that. You go to somewhere that no one talks Spanish or your language, and you see people in the house laughing, and you don't even know what they're talking about. Yeah. And then you find out that we're talking bullshit about you. They're laughing at you every single day. Ivan.
So even if they knew that the pranks were being faked ahead of time, they may not have understood the full repercussions of what they were agreeing to. They may have been tricked into agreeing to some of these things. Furthermore, their salaries were withheld. Team 10 refused to pay the Martinez twins after they decided they wanted to separate from the company. I mean, that just sounds illegal to me. And if you watch the Martinez twins video, then you would be armed with this knowledge. But Shane either hasn't watched the video or he doesn't care to watch the video because that doesn't fit his narrative. He just completely accepts everything that Nick CROMPTON says at face value, in spite of the fact that CROMPTON has sexual misconduct allegations against him that are at least a year old. There's a video by a guy named Mick Maio who goes into all of the text messages that he got when Nick CROMPTON was trying to recruit him into Team 10, asking for sexual favors and things like that.
I'll show you some screenshots up here. Why? And I mean, it kind of sucks, but it's just the truth, and that's how they roll. My first week I went into the Team 10 house, met all the guys. I met Jake, wasn't very nice. We didn't even really have a chat. He was just like, kind of, why are you in my house? And I was like, well, been invited in here, so what's the issue? At that time, the Martinez twins just got signed, and full credit to those boys. I really love the Martinez boys. Really good people. And I mean, the way they go about things just isn't right, and I think that's the main issue, and it kind of frustrates me. And as you saw from the screenshots there, that's the wrong mentality to have. You sign someone based on talent, not getting what you want out of someone.
So the fact that Shane doesn't challenge Nick on anything, and he basically goes along with the narrative that the Martinez twins are faking their suffering just to, I don't know, get revenge on Jake for some other grievance. Like, it's not even specified why they're retaliating in this way. Why would the Martinez twins be lying in this situation? Nope, Shane just sweeps it under the rug. He either doesn't know about it or he doesn't care about it, but either way, it's really, really shitty journalism. Part 5, the world of Jake Paul. This episode weirdly opens up with a montage of people critiquing the documentary that we're watching. Again, I think this is an example of going too meta. Shane is way too focused on his hate instead of just delivering a quality series that would diffuse the hate. Shane puts a disclaimer in there claiming that Katie is not diagnosing Jake with anything. She's just observing his behavior. I think this is a huge backpedal. It's clearly put in there to just diffuse any kind of criticism of the ethics of having an undercover therapist with you, unbeknownst to the person who you're meeting. But yeah, there's really nothing of substance in this episode. It's just Shane going over to Jake's house, being mesmerized by wealth, and kind of reluctantly becoming best friends with him. The only real item of note here is that Shane is already setting up Erica to be Jake Paul's savior. The reason why he's not actually a bad guy, because he's turning a new leaf, because he's got this great new girlfriend.
So I just like DM'd her, which was weird, and then I instantly regretted it. I'm like, was that creepy?
No, I was like, I think it was super spot on and accurate, and like, yeah, she like definitely helped me a lot, and like has helped me like grow up, I guess, in a weird way.
But it sort of plants the seed in the audience's mind that, oh, he's better now. He has a rock. He has someone who he can depend on. Unlike all these other ungrateful people. And I mean, it's complete horseshit. I think this was completely planned from the start. I don't think that Shane ever had any other intention than to become Jake's friend. I mean, if you think about it, it only makes sense. Associating with Jake Paul elevates Shane's profile, as is clearly evidenced by all of the attention that this series is getting. But then after the series, when Shane refuses to paint Jake Paul in a negative light and curries his favor, then they can be best friends. And now Shane has more access to opportunities. Now, if you ask me, this kind of behavior is more in line with sociopathy. I really don't see this as anything other than just power networking. Part 6, the secrets of Jake Paul. Now, this episode is more hanging out, more of Shane eating up the culture of Team 10. They go to Walmart, they're having a great time. And here, Katie seems to already be completely convinced that Jake Paul is not a sociopath, when really all that Jake did was turn off his vlog personality. No one's even a little skeptical that he's acting nice for the camera. In this episode and many others, Shane keeps hammering home the fact that he doesn't want to fuck up Jake's relationship with his family. And as I said in my last video on this, okay, if that's the case, then maybe you're not the best person to be examining them critically. I mean, to me, that just seems like a pretty significant bias. If you still want to be friends with people, you don't want to piss them off, are you going to actually ask the hard questions? Are you really going to get to the heart of the matter? Or are you just going to scratch the surface and sort of give people passes? This is completely self-serving. If he plays the nice guy card, says, I don't want to get in the way of family relationships, then he doesn't have to rustle any feathers. And if he doesn't have to rustle any feathers, then he can call Jake a friend at the end of it, which he has done. So Shane talks to Erica Costell, Jake's girlfriend. Erica paints Jake as the victim, says that he's been fucked over by a lot of people in his life. She doesn't say specifically who, but we can assume she's talking about Alyssa Violet and maybe former Team 10 members. And if she's talking about either of those people, the reason why they fucked him over is because Jake fucked them over first. It's completely one-sided. And even though this is part 6, 2 parts away from when he talked to Nick Crompton and got his side of the story, there has been no effort on Shane's part to talk to anybody else and to get any other perspective. Which is in spite of the fact that Shane keeps reiterating that there's multiple sides to every story and we gotta hear everybody out. Well, we're only hearing one side of the story, and that's Team 10. Shane doesn't make a lick of effort to talk to the actual victims of Team 10's shenanigans. We only get the Team 10 side. Erica further characterizes Jake as being under a lot of pressure because the Team 10 members are relying on him for housing and income. Now, if you ask me, CEOs are not where the concern should be. The concern should be on the employees. I mean, Jake's good. Jake's pretty much set for life right now. He takes a percentage of everybody's profits. He doesn't even have to do anything. And he makes money just from the other people and also from the content that he's already made. So Jake's life seems pretty easy to me. The people who are really under pressure are those who rely on Jake Paul for their livelihood. Jake, who has shown very little regard for the feelings of other people, being in charge of your life sounds like a fucking nightmare. But probably the most egregious thing about part 6 is the fact that Shane admits he had a 2-hour-long conversation with Erica Costell. And during that conversation, of which very little was revealed, Shane says, oh, we can cut here, and then they talk offline. Please name me a journalist, a documentarian, who would ever voluntarily turn off their camera during an interview. So I see this and I have to wonder, why is Shane having a secret conversation with Erica Costell? If he is supposed to be holding these people's feet to the fire to get to the heart of the matter, then why have anything not shot? I know not everything's going to make it into the final edit, but the fact that he willingly turned off the camera speaks volumes. And Shane basically concludes the episode by confiding in Erica that Katie is not a producer, she's a therapist, and then they jointly tell her that they don't think that Jake is a real sociopath. Why? Who the fuck knows? I mean, they only spent 2 days with the kid, but apparently that was enough to determine that he's not an abusive piece of shit. Case closed and moving on. And the only real evidence that they have for this is that Jake cares for Erica. Oh wow, he cares for his girlfriend, so that means he can't be an asshole to other people? Part 7, the ex-girlfriend of Jake Paul. Now, if part 4 was a doozy, this one is just nuclear fallout. It is awful. He starts off the episode by FaceTiming Keemstar, a racist, Trump-supporting bully who makes money from putting other people down on YouTube, and they act like they're best fucking friends. I really, it's the worst look I've ever seen. I mean, as if the rest of the series wasn't bad enough. But in this episode, Shane talks to Alyssa Violet, Jake's ex-girlfriend, and this being part 7 in an 8-part series, all I have to say is it's about damn time. This is the only perspective opposite Team 10 that we get in the entire series, and Shane completely botches the interview. The most glaring issue with this interview is the fact that he recorded it after he had already recorded his in-depth final interview with Jake Paul that completely paints him as sympathetic, and after which Shane and Jake considered themselves to be friends. So even though this interview was recorded after his interview with Jake Paul, he presents it first in the series chronology and then ends on the Jake Paul interview. Why? Clearly, he wants the sympathetic, emotional Jake Paul interview to be the last word on the matter. He wants you to actually kind of forget that he even talked to Alyssa Violet, that she had some damning allegations against him. And those damning allegations, well, in addition to psychological and physical abuse, Alyssa Violet had this to say.
It was Instagram models that he'd come over and be like, hey, like, we're scouting right now for Team 10, how about you come over, we'll see if you're a fit. They come over, he fucks them, they leave, and like, they're never a part of Team 10. It was like he used Team 10 to kind of like have girls over.
This is a bombshell to drop, and Shane just completely ignores it.
What did Logan say? I'm so like, and you don't have to get into detail because this is like a little too personal, but like when you were like, hey, let's hang out or whatever, like, was there any ounce of like, well, it's my brother?
Alyssa is claiming that Jake has a casting couch situation at Team 10. That's literally the same thing that Harvey Weinstein was doing. How does Shane have any tolerance for this in the hashtag #MeToo era? And to add insult to injury, Shane has the gall to goad Alyssa into taking some sort of responsibility for fucking around with Jake's feelings.
I mean, you already owned up to the abuse, you know, that was a little exaggerated. Is there anything else like that you could be like, you know what, I fucked up in the relationship too, or I was also fucking with his head sometimes too, or messing up things too, just to...
Yeah.
By the end of the interview, it feels very apparent that this was just a throwaway to say that he covered both sides, but he really didn't give a shit. Shane, from the start, knew that he wanted this to be a Jake Paul redemption arc because that is what benefits him. In handling the situation in this way, Shane has botched this story for everyone. Alyssa has said that these will be her final words on the topic, and Shane didn't dig in at all. And in so doing, Shane has offered tacit approval to Jake's abusive behavior to his millions of fans, most of whom are children. And you can already see the effects of this. If you search on Twitter for Jake Paul, you'll get just legions of people saying, "Oh, I guess I stan Jake now." And as Vivian Guswa points out on Twitter, and if Jake Paul is or was doing such a thing, this involves YouTube as well, since YouTube spent so much time promoting him and his brother at the expense of other YouTubers / channels. And while I am on the subject, all the investors who are bankrolling these personalities are also culpable. Back in part 4, Nick CROMPTON revealed that Team 10 has investors who gave them the capital to set up shop and actually get their mansion and get their operations going. If their money enabled sexual misconduct, then they need to answer to that. And we're talking about Jake's casting couch, but we're also talking about Nick CROMPTON's casting couch. Both of them were allegedly engaging in this behavior. On top of all of the psychological abuse and other just wild shit that was going on there, you've got two people engaging in predatory behavior. So the investors need to answer to this, I think, and in order for them to answer, we need to know who they are. So who are the investors behind Team 10? Well, believe it or not, if you just type Team 10 investors into Google, you get them in the top result. This is an article from VentureBeat. This is from 2017. It says, 19-year-old raises $1 million for Team Dom to monetize influencers. Jake Paul is a 19-year-old Disney star who started a new media company, Team Dom, to help influencers build their brands and make money. Team Dom is announcing today that it has raised $1 million in a funding round led by China's Danhua Capital. Other investors include Edward Lando, Horizons Alpha, Gary Vaynerchuk, Vayner Capital, Abe Burns, Sound Ventures and A-Grade Investments, and Adam Zeppelin. And I should note that although that article says that Danhua Capital is from China, my research indicates that it is actually in Palo Alto, California. Now, I don't know anything about the deals that these investors have, but my advice, divest. Divestment, as in the opposite of investment. Sell off your equity and don't just pass it off onto another person. Have Jake Paul buy you out. He'll own 100% of Team 10 and then you can move on with your life. That's really the only ethical option that I can consider. Now, Hollywood is already scummy as hell, and while YouTube presents itself as the hipper, cooler replacement for Hollywood, it's starting to follow in its footsteps in all of the wrong ways. We have to have zero tolerance for this kind of thing as an industry. Part 8, Inside the Mind of Jake Paul. This is the finale. This interview was a complete sham. It's an hour and 45 minutes long and we don't even learn any new information. Shane asked nothing but leading questions. And in fact, sometimes Shane would ask Jake a question and then feed him the answer before letting him actually answer it himself. The worst example of this is when Shane is falling all over himself trying to feed Jake a reason for his alleged racism, and then Andrew the cameraman has to cut to fix a lighting situation.
They did say that you were saying some like crazy offensive comments.
He was saying to us all the time because it was funny for them.
But even if you were, I think it's one of those things where it's like, that, and it sounds fucked up, but that's not surprising to me. because you get...
Do you want to take a second? There's like a thing flashing in the back, so do you want to take a second? I just got to move that.
Yeah.
As a viewer, you can't even tell the difference between before they cut and after they cut. The two shots look exactly the same. And there doesn't even seem to be a lighting rig. I mean, they're just shooting in Shane's living room. Shane acts like he is Jake's therapist throughout this whole endeavor, despite the fact he has no training whatsoever. He advises Jake to separate his family from his business, and basically he tells him to oust his father from the company. This is really not his place, and it's entirely out of scope for a serious documentary effort. And it's just painfully apparent that Shane is trying to make himself into the Oprah or the Dr. Phil of YouTube. And if we're going to psychoanalyze Jake or talk about his feelings, where's Katie Morton, the therapist? She was there for the first few episodes, and now she's just vanished without any explanation. Shane also mentions several times that he doesn't want to throw Logan under the bus. Why the hell not? I mean, the only explanation for that is he doesn't want to piss off Logan because Logan is also a connection for him to make, somebody who can help out his career, which is the only point of this entire series. And then we've got this emotional music to close this out, which kind of implies that this has been a long and difficult journey in which we've learned so much.
Oh, I wish that you hadn't pulled the trigger. Shut me down with my bitter heart.
To me, it just really felt completely out of place, considering that the majority of the docuseries is filler and fluff. Shane likes to paint this image of himself as an empath, somebody who feels deeply for other people, but I don't actually see much evidence of that in both his handling of the series itself and his reaction to criticism of the series on Twitter. One person replied to him saying, "Stop giving racists a platform." Shane replies, "I just posted hours and hours and hours and hours of content this month for free. Literally, fuck off." She then says, "I've literally been watching and supporting you since like 2007, but you need to stop doing this shit. You're making excuses and making people feel sympathy for someone who is racist. Why?" With Shane responding, "You don't know anyone's heart, and if you've been watching me since 2007, then you would know why I'm so passionate about helping people grow and change. I wish someone like me would have reached out to me back when I was making mistakes." And here we have really Shane Dawson's entire MO. I think that more than just being empathetic and wanting to see the good in people, Shane sees himself in these controversial figures. He is reminded of his own controversies, which he clearly must regard as being unfair, that unfairly indicted him as a bad person. So now he's going around and trying to rescue everybody else, because if he can save them, then that means that he can save himself. And despite deleting the original tweet, Shane is still liking people, replying to him, telling him that he is justified for telling one of his fans to fuck off. Does that sound like an empath to you? Not only that, he also low-key bullied a fan on Twitter, quote tweeting them with his disagreement so that all of his fans would see. And the fans, of course, attacked the original poster to the point where they had to change their username and then go private. So in conclusion, I would say Shane is not an empath. He's a narcissist. He does not take criticism very well, refuses to see things from other people's point of view. This series lacks both focus and conviction. Shane refused to ask challenging questions. The entire thing was just a big excuse to clout chase. And this is disappointing also for me on a personal level because I recently became a fan of Shane's. Prior to this, I really didn't like Shane based on his diva-like behavior on the chair. And then I kind of became a fan once I saw the whole Bobby Burns saga unfold. And then after I watched the Jeffree Star documentary, I was like, hey, I like this guy. This is really kind of cool content. I like his personality. He seems fun. But after this, I don't know if I can still stand him, to be honest with you. TLDW, just go watch Nerd City's expose on Jake Paul. It's about the length of one of Shane Dawson's videos, has 10 times the information, and doesn't do any ass kissing. And that's the real tea. This isn't tea, by the way. This is week-old beer. It's all I have in my fridge.